Well, thank you, Stannis, and thank you, Stantec and CIBC for being sponsors. Thank you again to the U.S. Consul General, Catherine Denani, for coming here. David Goldstein is here from Destination Canada, with whom we just signed an MOU last week. Well, it's my 5th time up here talking to you. Always exciting, and we like to keep it fresh. So let's talk about how YVR and LIFT are connected. Let's use the magnificent 787 as the aircraft. You all recognize it. Carbon fiber, goes 15,000 kilometers. Beautiful experience. Now, lift, of course, as we know, is designated by the coefficient of lift. There are 4 forces: lift, drag, gravity, and thrust. Lift is very important. Lift, of course, coefficient of lift times the density times the velocity squared times the area of the wing over 2. If you don't have wind tunnel data or fluid dynamics, you can approximate a thin airfoil by the coefficient being 2 times pi times the angle of attack in radians. Now here's where it gets interesting. Bernoulli explains part of it. I think the Coanda effect explains part of it. And then, of course, there's Newtonian physics, all that air being pushed out the back. And then, I'm sorry, I forgot where I was. Scratch all that. Let's talk about how YVR lifts British Columbia. Lifts British Columbia in terms of dreams, aspirations, and business. Now, this is a big topic, and I'm going to need a little bit of help. So what we've done is we've got some really expert speakers from around the province. First, Sam Samadar, the director of Kelowna International Airport.
Hey, Craig, buddy. Great to be with you here today.
And next, James Henderson, the president and COO of Vigilon.
Hi, Craig. Thanks for having me.
Mr. Scott Jacob, principal from Jacob Brothers Construction.
Hello, Craig. Thank you very much for including me today.
Ms. Penny Wilson, the chief marketing officer of Hootsuite.
Thanks, Craig. Nice to be here.
Ms. Ruby Ng, the executive director of Disability Foundation.
Hi, Craig. I'm honored to be here.
And Wendy Grant-John, counselor from the Musqueam Indian Band.
Hi, Craig. Nice to be here with you today.
So they're going to help me as I give you the whole picture of what's happening at YVR. But first, let's talk about our exceptional growth. Over the past 5 years, we've been lifting a lot of passengers. And last year, you might have seen in the paper, 24.146 million passengers. That's a lot, 8.4% increase over the year before. Almost 1.9 million passengers, and the year before that, 2 million more passengers. So we're actually way above where I was here last year telling you we see 31 million passengers at YVR by 2022 on the medium forecast. Now, why is that happening? Why are we growing so quickly? Well, I think the economy is strong in BC and in the States and around the world, and that's always going to buoy air travel. I think part of it's got to be our Connect YVR rates and charges, which are amongst the lowest in North America for air carriers. That has resulted in new destinations, a lot more frequencies to those destinations, and higher load factors. Now, load factors are how full an aircraft is. So in the past, 75% was great. We're seeing 91% full to Europe, 86% full to Latin America. These are incredible numbers. One other point, to London in the summer. We have 1,500 seats out of here and 1,500 seats back. 6 full flights a day to London out of little YVR. It's amazing. Global aviation's up 64% in the last decade, projected to double in the next couple of decades. And if I sound a little startled by this, well, I am, because YVR is the fastest growing international airport in North America. And what does this growth look like? Where does it come from? What sectors are really working? Well, all of them, but let's start with domestic travel. Domestic, last year, up 5.4%. And WestJet, incredible new service to Comox and Nanaimo, increased service to Fort McMurray, to Edmonton, to Calgary, and to Fort St. John. They had an incredible year. Air Canada, they have an extensive domestic network. They had new service to Yellowknife. And Kevin Howlett, thanks you and your team for being here, and thanks for being such an incredible partner of ours this past year. We also welcomed Flair Airlines. They couldn't be here today, and they have service to Kelowna and Edmonton. But Transborder was an even better year, and especially for our partners at Air Canada. Transborder was up 9.4%, and Air Canada had new services to Dallas, to Denver, to Boston. increased frequencies to LA, San Jose, much anticipated service to Orlando, and they announced Sacramento for May of this year. Our mission, of course, is to connect BC proudly to the world. So international traffic is important, and it was up hugely, 13.1% growth. 11 new and additional services, 2 new carriers, and all markets internationally saw very strong growth. But why don't we start with our growth to China? In March, we kicked off with Cathay Pacific flying their brand new Airbus A350-900, first to arrive at YVR, increased Hong Kong service, and a great new product. China Southern flies now from Guangzhou through Vancouver to Mexico City, and I'll talk about those connections in a minute. It's our first link from China through to Mexico. A new partner, Hong Kong Airlines. When I found out Jackie Chan was on the inaugural, I trained to fight him, but then I folded like a cheap suit when I saw what he could do. And you know, we got 1 million views on social media from that. Now we have 3 airlines serving Hong Kong. Icelandair increased its service to Daly. If you haven't had a chance to fly that airline to Reykjavik, you really have to give it a shot. And Air New Zealand, longtime partner of ours, celebrated 10th anniversary with a haka performance on the ramp, which frankly was intimidating and really fun at the same time. We also welcome Sunwing to Montego Bay. I see some friends from Vantage out there. They have really improved Sangster International Airport in Jamaica hugely over the past decade. So glad to see the Vantage team here today. Now back to Air Canada internationally, spectacular new services, Nagoya, Frankfurt, Taipei, and Gatwick, and Melbourne in December. Melbourne's a long way, 16-hour flight, so you could sleep for 8 hours and still have to fly to London. Huge economic investment from Air Canada. And what makes that possible is banking. Settle down, Phil, not your kind of banking. You'll get your cut. I'm talking about banking at the airport. And so what is banking? Banking is essentially, in airport terms, economies of scale, bringing in all kinds of people from different places and then putting them on airplanes to somewhere else. So let's just talk about one here, where you can fly from Air Canada out of Newark to Vancouver and then all the way across the Pacific to Melbourne. Putting those people from Newark through our terminal quickly, efficiently, through the customs and getting them to Melbourne is important. Scared some people in Australia when I showed up. Great flight. And then, of course, when you go back, when you add in all the other flights they have, and you fly the 3 flights that Air Canada has to Australia, now you get an idea of what the banking can be like. And banking helps everybody in this room because that means there's more potential for you to get on flights every which way. You need to have the right airplanes. Air Canada does with, of course, the 787. You need to have a terminal. We've been working on this for 25 years, how to get people quickly through connections. Because if you're efficient, if the baggage system works, if you get through the customs in either direction, it's efficient and comfortable, we can increase destinations. We're at 127 now. We want to get to 144. And believe it or not, the best way now to get to New York out of Australia is through Vancouver. Of course, you don't have to just go to Vancouver. You can go to any place in Western Canada. In fact, you can go to any one of these destinations, Prince George, Edmonton, Calgary, or Kamloops. You could go to Kelowna. And to talk about what that banking has done for Kelowna, Mr. Sam Samadar.
Vision for YLW is to become the best mid-sized airport in North America, which supports our city vision, which is to become the best mid-sized city in North America. YVR has been a tremendous partner, and the way I can best describe it is when we look at the connectivity between Kelowna and Vancouver, our busiest city pair is that link. In the summertime, we have 94 flights a week, which result in almost 7,500 seats. And in the wintertime, that grows to 130 flights a week, representing 10,000 seats. We're well known for our tourism, and we look at ski and golf and wine, agriculture. All those things certainly make the Okanagan unique. Our international traffic originates out of places like Melbourne and Brisbane that's destined for our local ski hills. We know on certain flights with the YVR Kelowna connection that we have 40% of that traffic that's destined for our Okanagan Mountains. Almost 50% of the landmass of Kelowna is tied into agriculture. And the example I can best give you is the cherry farmers who will produce and pick their cherries in the morning, put them through production during midday, and they're on refrigerated trucks to YVR as underbelly cargo on passenger flights heading to places like China and Japan. It's a tremendous synergy between the Okanagan and Vancouver in terms of forming the agricultural community here in the Okanagan. The best thing I can say between YVR and YLW is it's all about collaboration, about working together. We all share the same passenger that connects between YLW and YVR and beyond. It's that connectivity from other areas within the province, including YLW, that help feed into YVR, that develops our connections globally. And those are very, very important in terms of driving our local economies regionally, whether it's the Okanagan or whether it's Prince George in the north and other communities around BC.
Well, thanks for that, Sam. It's amazing how you turned my talk into a talk about Kelowna. I want to talk about another force, and we use the Mexico City as an example. The force is drag. So lift is important, drag is bad. Drag is bad for aircraft, bad for airports. A couple years ago, we only had one flight a day to Mexico City. It was a good flight, Air Canada, great flight, but not a lot of options. With the removal of drag, basically visa restrictions, we now have all of these. Aeromexico flying double daily, Interjet 4 times a week, WestJet in May will be daily, and China Southern, as I said earlier, flying through Vancouver and on to Mexico City. Of course, there are other flights to Mexico, but let's just concentrate on Mexico City for a second, because that is a hub into South America. 1,400 seats a day now, as of the end of the year, into Mexico City, all because of a reduction of visa requirements. And why is that important? Well, let me back up and use some examples from other regions. So because we have open skies to the US, we have 28 nonstop flights. Europe got 10. We've got 8 nonstop flights to China. Oh, hang on a second. 2 more just added yesterday, Shenzhen and Tianjin. So that'd be 10. 8 to Mexico, 3 to Australia, and to the continent of South America, 0 nonstop flights. Something ain't right here, and what ain't right here is that we don't have visa-free travel to the South America through Vancouver. We have it to a bunch of cities in China. There's no reason why we can't have Canadian carriers flying from, let's say, Rio through Vancouver on to China. Could be Air Canada, might be a WestJet 787, but not taking advantage of this is a drag on BC's economy. You might have noticed we're right halfway between South America and China, and we're right on the same route. So it really is a drag that we don't have that. So we've got to get the Canadian government to increase the bilaterals, that's the trade agreements, and to reduce the visa restrictions. Now, every plane just doesn't carry people, it carries cargo. And each destination adds a new opportunity for British Columbian companies to sell their goods around the world. And these new aircraft have tremendous cargo volume in the belly of the aircraft. This last year, we grew to 313,500 tons. That's 10.8% of cargo. Now, a lot of that was perishables like cherries or crabs or gooey duck clams, but that's not all. There's a lot of high-tech products getting onto our airplanes. And to talk about that, about their high security systems, we've got James Henderson from Avigilon.
The history of Avigilon is quite interesting. We were founded back in 2004 locally here in Vancouver, and since then we've really gone from a local manufacturer of video surveillance products into a global success story. We began really developing just video surveillance solutions, but have really expanded our product portfolio. And today we're a leader in artificial intelligence, delivering platforms that provide a greater level of learning and understanding of the environment, and are able to actually provide people the information they need to react. So really we've diversified our portfolio and continue to expand in the marketplace, allowing our customers to really solve real-world problems with unique advanced technology. We knew we wanted to manufacture our own products, but when you move into the manufacturing space, it's important that you are able to bring in materials and that you have access to be able to ship and receive things quickly and effectively. Being located close to YVR was an important part of our process in the selection. We ship a massive amount of product throughout the globe. So we're talking tens of thousands of units that are moving in and out every single month for us. And as a company, we need to make sure that as we continue to scale, we are close to the resources that we need, such as YVR, to help support that scale.
Thanks, James. That's a great picture. That, my friends, is the biggest airplane in the world flying at YVR. So You see we're growing. You can see how we're a big part of BC businesses. But this growth comes with issues. I refuse to call them problems. They're growth issues. We've had to think of some innovative ways to get around it. The first you're going to notice, busing operations. This is actually pretty common in major hub airports around the world: Hong Kong, Frankfurt, Amsterdam, Singapore. We call them remote stand operations. Basically, you park an aircraft on a piece of concrete, you drive a bus out to the airport. It's a nice luxury bus. It's also electric. People get on the bus, and coming in is great because we drive you right to the back of customs. It's actually faster than walking through the terminal. Going out, you get on a bus and you head to the airplane. Why are we doing this? Because it's about a quarter the cost and it's a lot faster. So about $12 million all in for the concrete and the equipment to do a busing operation, about $50 million to build a gate attached to the terminal. We're doing that, which I'll talk to you in a minute, but again, in order to keep up, we have to do a lot of busing. I promise you, you'll like the experience. We have a great team in charge of it, and to show you one example of what we've done, the AVI ramp. So instead of going up stairs into the aircraft, you go up a nice slightly sloped ramp all the way up to the aircraft. So if you're towing a bag, or you've got kids with you, or if you're a wheelchair user or have some other walking disability, it's a lot easier to go up. It's also covered, so you're out of the weather. We have a new concept we're putting in front of our board right now. I just want to orient you to the map. This is the terminal building. The middle part is the customs. That's the international wing, transborder, and the hotel. In order to make some more RSOs, we're going to punch a taxiway through into what used to be our parking, our jet set parking, and we'll be able to park 10 aircraft on the east remote stands. And what that'll do is that'll allow us to operate 10, if we need to, 10 busing operations simultaneously. Now, this removes 2,000 parking stalls. So our very, very clever folks at Parking and Ground Transportation are going to turn the jet set parking, which you use a lot and you book online now, into a valet product. So the concept is, this is just the concept of the building, you'll book online, you'll drop your keys off, all undercover, get on a bus up to the terminal. It's a neat concept. It's like you can park and fly. But rest assured, there'll be lots of parking options going forward. In the terminal, we've had to continue to improve our processes. Our primary inspection kiosks, we're the first big airport in Canada to put them in, compatible with almost 100% of passports. We've also sold 1,300 of them around the world to airports and seaports. Of course, all that money comes back to help run the airport. I'd like to have a shout out to Madonna Ratty and John Lindy. Where are you? From CBSA. Thank you so much. We would have really been in trouble without these this summer because they don't get enough people. We had 4,000 people an hour arriving into customs this summer. You'll remember last year talked about our ambitious capital plans, the expanded center option. Well, we're moving as fast as we can. In fact, we're spending $1.7 billion in the next 3 years, $500 million this year alone. This includes a lot of major projects like the D Pier expansion, which is international. I talked about this last year. Really beautiful West Coast feel, an island in the middle of it, digital art, energy saving, really exciting new food and beverage and amenity opportunities. The Central Utilities Building is the next thing we'll talk about. It's not as sexy, but it's really important because we are the biggest building in BC and we have to heat and cool it. So located in that building will be a geothermal plant, which will really help us reduce our greenhouse gases. Also, it will have a lot of electric backup power in there. You might have heard of airports that had some problems in that area. We're not going to have that problem. We already have good backup. There'll be 4 big generators in this building to make sure that we don't have any issues. We're also building another parkade because we need it, 6 stories. It'll have a rainwater harvesting system because even though on a day like today you wonder about that, you remember a few years ago in the drought, we didn't have any water to water our extensive landscaping. Plus, this huge cistern we're going to have collecting all this water will be used in the event of an earthquake to put out any fires at the airport. There will be electric vehicles up to more than 10% of the stalls, and there'll be a guidance system inside, so there'll be a little green light above every empty stall in both parkades. So that'll reduce both emissions and frustration. And it'll connect to the existing parkade. We haven't come up with a design yet. These are just conceptual about Pier F, but certainly we will have to expand the Pier F side of the terminal starting very soon. Currently just conceptual. We'll have to close the value lot to build this geothermal plant, but we've actually started building another parking lot. You might have seen it. It's almost ready out by the Templeton station. Really nice, quick 3 or 4 minute rail ride to the terminal. Things you don't see, the runway and safety areas. We put $150 million into these safety areas in the unlikely event of an aircraft overshoot or underrun. We've done the south runway and the crosswind. We're about to start the north. We're doing double what will be the Canadian standard, because at YVR, the safety standard is where we begin, not where we end. So it's lots of work, lots of concrete, lots of metal to cut, and that means lots of jobs. So I'd like to introduce Mr. Scott Jacobs from Jacobs Construction.
The Jacob Brothers is a privately held construction company. We're based in Surrey, British Columbia. We started our business in early 2008. After individually having long, successful construction careers, we thought we'd go into business for ourselves. Companies specialize in heavy civil construction as well as building construction. We do a tremendous amount of work for various levels of government, blue chip companies, and also companies like YVR. Through our relationship with YVR, we do all manner of projects. Some are ground side, some are air side, some are on the airfield, and some are inside the terminal itself. We recently finished the runway and safety arrangement project, which is a airfield pavement extension project. One other example is the project we're on now, which is the Templeton South parking lot, where we're building critical infrastructure for part of the airport's redevelopment. So YVR has become an excellent client for Jacob Brothers Construction. It provides local projects. Many of our employees live and work in the greater Vancouver area and appreciate the opportunity to work so close to home on exciting projects such as we have here at YVR. YVR is much more than a transportation hub for Jacob Brothers. It's a key source of employment, and it's something we value tremendously. As YVR grows, we all benefit. The value of having this amount of construction close to home is just tremendous.
Thank you very much, Scott. So for the last third of this, I'd like to actually switch gears a little bit and talk to you about a part of the business that you may not be familiar with. Now, we're a not-for-profit company. We do like to make money because that means we can put it right back into the airport, but there's no profits for anybody. It's a righteous circle to build this great airport. One of the things that I like to say is we live here. People raise their kids here from the airport. We love BC, and so we don't take sustainability as just a word. We're actually committed, the board and management committed to making a sustainable airport. A few years ago, we didn't like where we were, so we started changing that. And on this timeline, or this line of engagement, I should say, you'll see that there's some airports that are market-driven, some that are engaged, and some of our colleagues. And I'm really happy to say that independent third parties have said, we are a leading airport in shaping airport sustainability. It's important to us, and we use it to judge every project. In fact, every project that you saw there goes through what's called a sustainability case document before we bring it forward to the board for approval. As you know, there are 4 pillars to governance, and I'd like to talk about all of them. First of all, of course, talking about economic. That's really obvious, I think, to everybody in this room. We generate 24,000 jobs right at the airport, literally tens of thousands of jobs around the province in tourism, transportation, cargo, hotels, food and beverage, as we bring all these people here. We help facilitate $16.5 billion in output, $8.4 billion in GDP, and $1.4 billion to the government coffers, not an insignificant amount. We also have a AA credit rating, and this financial stability helps us to lift innovation around the province. And if you're a company that has to move people around the world, well, one of the most successful in the technology space from Vancouver is Hootsuite. Penny Wilson would tell you about their experience.
Hi, I'm Penny Wilson. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at Hootsuite, and I'm here at HQ3, which is primarily our marketing team. Hootsuite was founded in 2008 by Ryan Holmes. The headquarters is here in Vancouver, and we've grown from a handful of people to almost 1,000 people around the globe in 15 different offices. YVR is truly a global airport, really helping a company like us to be effective globally. Whether we're out there to visit our customers, or we're bringing customers in, or we're moving employees around the world, this is truly an important hub for us. And I think just fundamentally the experience you get when you walk into YVR, for me as a Canadian, I feel proud, and then when I come back from somewhere, I just feel like it's such a welcoming place. I feel like I'm home.
You know, of all the awards we get, of all the compliments we get, when I hear people say that, I feel like I'm home. That makes me feel the best. So thank you, Penny. You look, we know as an airport we have a big impact on the environment, especially of Sea Island, of the Lower Mainland. So we have big plans in our environmental management plan. We're going to reduce our emissions by 33%, reducing our waste by 50%, and 30% reduction in potable and all water usage. Interestingly, for me anyway, actually that last one is the hardest one for us to do. And I guess I can just put it this way, millions of people and hundreds of toilets. We're still crunching the number on 2017, but I think we did okay. In 2017, we actually did the largest apron install of LED lights in Canada. This is the old lamps, and there's the new ones. And sure, we saved 715,000 kilowatt hours, which is enough to power like 72 houses, but look at the difference working around the aircraft, you know, so you can both save money and increase safety at the same time. We're always looking at innovative ways to reduce waste. We recycle now 19,000 chopsticks a month. They get cleaned, sent to Chop Value, and made into these beautiful products. We actually like to use some of these, tabletops perhaps, in our expanded terminals. We renewed our Level 2 carbon accreditation, which is not an easy thing to do with Airport Council International, and we're working on Level 3, which will include everybody on Sea Island, and we're doing it without any offsets. One of the things I'm very proud of, we were the first airport in the world to be salmon safe. You have to do that every year. You have to be certified. It's an independent organization that wants to make sure that you're restoring, protecting, and enhancing the habitat for salmon. And of course, it's very important for us because Sea Island sits in the middle of one of the most important salmon rivers in the world. Very excited to get this award from the Chicago Department of Aviation, who actually looks around the world and said, your Project Green YVR, where you're helping reduce the footprint of all your partners, was worthy of this award. So let's go to the next pillar, which is social. We live here. We want to reflect the community in which we live. And we are working very hard for traditionally disadvantaged groups. Particularly, let's talk about women. 38% of our board are women, including our chair, Mary Jordan, 40% of the management team, 44% of the executive team, and we're working hard to make that 50%. We have a bargaining unit, so of course men and women in the union make the same wages. We're really working hard to get more women into non-traditional roles. And finally, I'll lay a marker down. I'm very proud of this fact. Men and women in management make the same money within a very small margin of difference. And if you're a business leader out there, I'd like you to look at yourself and say, can I say the same about my company? And if you can't, why not? We're working very hard to increase visible minorities in all parts of our business, including management. And in fact, we were recognized by the governance professionals in Canada, given a Best Practices Enhancing Boardroom Diversity Award last year. In terms of persons with disabilities, I sit on something called the President's Group. I'd like to talk to you individually about that. And what we're trying to do is get more persons with disabilities into the workforce and make the airport more accessible. It really opened my eyes as to what an untapped resource persons with disabilities are. We do everything we can at the airport to make the airport accessible. We have, for persons with hearing loss, a new visual paging system, high contrast tiles for people with vision loss, very accessible facilities, including a pet relief area if you have an assistance dog. We're making flying accessible to everybody. And I'm really excited about the latest thing we've done with the Canucks Autism Network, the I Can Fly program, which is essentially a sticker that goes on the boarding pass so people know to treat persons with autism a little differently. We've made it available to every airport in Canada free. I know Sam's doing it in Kelowna, and our folks in Vantage have actually taken it to Cyprus. We're very close partners with many communities that have disabilities, and we like to, because we want everybody to enjoy flying and enjoy life. And Ruby Ng from the Disability Foundation would like to talk about that.
The vision for the Disability Foundation is to empower people with physical disabilities to reimagine what is possible. Our mission is to provide opportunities for active living, outdoor adapted activities, and special assistance in order to empower each individual's journeys. Participants have opportunities to engage in hiking in the wilderness using the trail rider, as well as adapted paddleboarding, as well as adapted kayaking. For the Disability Sailing Association, it is an incredible experience to be able to be on the open water, to feel the sense of independence and freedom being out in an adapted Martin 16 sailboat. There are participants who had never been on the water before. They had never imagined that they could have an experience where they leave the disability or they leave their wheelchair back on shore. That's one of the transformational experiences, and that's what we mean when we say we want to help people reimagine what's possible. YVR helps generate lift for the Disability Foundation specifically by showing their commitment to accessibility and inclusion, by enabling us to raise awareness and let more people know about the opportunities for quality of life and active living for people with physical disabilities. We have aspirational goals, we have an aspirational vision. We believe that with teamwork, anything is possible, and we love that one of our leading partners is YVR.
Thank you very much, Ruby. The last pillar is governance, and our role as a community-based airport compels us to try and bring as many people into the community as we can. We have a long-term lease with the government. We're stewards of the land, tasked with utilizing it for all the people of BC and to look after the land. And we recognize that the Musqueam Indian Band has been the stewards of this land for thousands of years. We're on their traditional territory. We don't just recognize it. This past year was a great milestone. We signed a historic 30-year agreement with the Musqueam, including revenue sharing, jobs, apprenticeships, and a great program to move the airport forward. But it's not about this signing so much as the chance for real friendship and real changes, real partnership. And I'm excited to think about what's going to happen over the next 30 years. And Wendy Grant-John will share more with you.
Musqueam's vision has always been to maintain our traditional values and ensure that there's a sustainability for our people to be able to live the lives that they have always lived at the mouth of the river, and to ensure that we have good governance that manages all of the opportunities that we have in creating wealth for our young people and supporting our elders. The Sustainability and Friendship Agreement with YVR started many years ago. 2 years ago, we had the opportunity to sit with the senior people at YVR and said, you know, we really want to take this relationship much farther than looking at art and the kinds of opportunities within some of your committees. What makes YVR a really good partner is their willingness to come to the table, take off their preconceived ideas of what an Indigenous community is looking for in a friendship agreement, and listening to what our goals and aspirations are and incorporating that into the friendship agreement that we've put down. It was so emotional for myself, and we brought the elders out to be a part of the signing. It was highly charged emotionally, and one that was such a success, not just for Musqueam, but for YVR, and indeed, I believe, not just for the City of Vancouver or the Province of British Columbia, but for all Canadians to see. If you can come to a table and really look from your heart as well as your eyes, we can create such a beautiful opportunity for everybody to succeed.
Well, thanks, Wendy. So, coming down to the end of the speech, we're generating lift for BC. We're growing in spectacular fashion now. We don't always get it right. Please don't think that we think that. When we make a mistake, however, we clean ourselves up, we stand up, we move on, and we don't let it happen again. What's the secret? The secret is people. To paraphrase Pericles from 2,500 years ago, it's people who are ashamed to fall below a certain standard. People like this, like our magnificent green coats, our people who work at the airport, our YVR Stars, a program we have where anybody in the airport can nominate anybody else. And next Thursday, we're going to have that party, which is fantastic, a great feeling because it crosses all 24,000 jobs. I think the most telling award for us was mentioned earlier, the Skytrax Award, which we have won now 8 years in a row, more than any airport or any other airline. Thank you very much for that. We try very hard to be a sustainable connecting hub between the Americas and Asia, and we try to do it with some flair and some panache for you, the customer. It speaks to our vision. So, to wrap up, I want to thank you for your help over the past year when we've talked to the government about keeping us in our current governance mode and not moving to share capitalization. The BC business community, all levels of government just said, no, we like it the way it is. I want to thank you for your help on the master plan, which has been a 3-year program. I want to thank you for your patience during construction. We'll do everything we can to ease your travel, but as we grow, there are bound to be a few areas of friction. And I want to thank you for another great year. And thanks for being a great audience.